Immediately when COVID happened, we were under contract on 5 properties. They all blew up in our face. And so we said, okay, well, what's going on here? And they blew up in our face because, we tried to get extensions or whatever else, and sellers weren't willing. We said, you know what, we're willing to take a step away, see where the pricing falls in the market, and, come back into this. We're still very excited about neighborhood commercial. We just wanted to get a little bit more understanding on pricing.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. So welcome back to Weiss Advice. I'm your host, Yonah Weiss, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us again. I have a special guest with us today. Parker Webb is with us out of Kansas City, Missouri. Parker, I appreciate you being here today. Just a little bit about Parker. He's the Chief Executive Officer, CEO of FTW Investments, which is a brand new company joining forces of a few different people together. And he manages the company's operations, contributes to investment strategies, and keeps the visions and goals of the company in close distance. He brings over 7 years of real estate experience to the table. And not only are they focusing on that, they have Third Space Property Group, which is a boutique real estate firm offering services, sales, leasing, property management, construction management, fee development, and real estate consulting services. Parker is, really a heavy hitter in the Kansas City market in multifamily. It's really your sweet spot, right? Yep. So you guys are coming together, buying deals, syndicating deals, bringing investors in, and getting the benefits, reaping the benefits of multifamily investing. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Yonah. I'm excited to be on. Excited you're doing this.
Yeah, I am also. And I want to just ask you a question. Obviously, everyone, you don't start out from, graduating, university or whatever you did, and then all of a sudden you just jump into, hey, I want to do real estate sales. Or did you? What was that? What was what got you interested in real estate in the first place?
So it was actually kind of interesting. I went to school here at UMKC in Kansas City, University of Missouri, Kansas City, and I was doing political science and economics, and largely wanted to work in public service. I spent time as an intern for USAID, doing development work in East Africa with some of our partner organizations there. And so I had this whole mindset that I was going to go do economic development work for government agencies, and I wanted to do public service. And then came back from one of those trips abroad, and a buddy said, hey, I know you're kind of thinking global health, economic development, but what you did, you raised capital to build a hospital. That's real estate development. He's like, maybe you should think about that. And so, at the time I was like, I enjoy being abroad, but I really want to, have a family, and I want to be in Kansas City for the long term. And so what can I do? And, he said, hey, why don't you come to a real estate club meeting? Went to one. The guy speaking happened to become my first boss as I, followed up with him after the presentation. So that was Mark Long at Newmark in Kansas City. And he really kind of shepherded me into the industry. And then I kind of crafted my career from there.
Awesome. That's amazing. And it really does have to do, I think, with just, the influences we have in our lives. And you mentioned, just that friend putting the idea in your head. And it really, that's amazing because, we have a sounding board and we have people in our lives that are able to, hear what we're going through and maybe give advice, maybe give suggestions to what we're doing. So, I hope some of our listeners hearing this understand that, it's an integral part of, growing and finding, new ways is to, have someone like that you can share your ideas with and point you in the right direction. So, is there something that some idea, because obviously you went public health, you were doing a lot of different things until you got into real estate, and then you just, took off, and you've been in this and continue, bursting. You guys are like rocket speed, going up and up. Mm-hmm. But I want to ask you, is there right now, you guys have just founded this new synergetic FTW Investments. Is there a resource that you would say that the three of you and your two partners kind of share as a common goal that you look to in each other?
Sure. I mean, well, so I'll say is that maybe there's a common framework that sort of brought us all together. So we're huge fans of Gino Wickman's Traction and that whole operating system, sort of entrepreneurial operating system. And frankly, that's the framework through which kind of we all came together. And then what's interesting is, so it's me, it's Logan Freeman, who's really got the expertise in capital raising, does a lot of 1031 transactions. And then Corey Tuck, who, he managed 100 million plus family office for a really long time. So, we have the ability to kind of bring on his asset management background and everything they're doing around tax planning in the family office. And then my specialty was always, identifying deals for acquisitions, managing operations, handling construction and development. And so really what we all saw was each of us combined is a complete package where all of us by ourselves was not.
Right. So you had what each other lacked and you're able to bring those combined energies together. And that's exactly what the word synergy means is taking those combined energies that cannot do anything or, very much at all on their own. And together you guys can do tremendous things. So that's incredible to be able to find that in one another. I have an interesting question because I've never asked this question before to anyone, but I wanted to. And it's a random question, but just because I want to get to know you a little bit. So if you, Parker, were to have your own late night talk show, who would be your first guest?
Ooh, interesting. So can I do one that's sort of deceased? Because that would be my number one goal.
This is fictitious, so obviously you can do it.
So I would say, the most interesting person I think that I wanted to meet more than anybody else was Anthony Bourdain. Just how he lived life and, told people stories and, got to eat great food with incredible people. That is just fascinating to me. But then also as someone who's still alive, I'm a huge fan of Top Gear and the Grand Tour. So Jeremy Clarkson, I just think he's hilarious and I would probably want to bring him on. So. And also if I could turn that interview into us driving, fast cars, that sounds fun.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, listen, if it's your show, you can do whatever you want. So
right.
What's amazing to me, and I spoke to Logan, one of your partners, a few weeks ago, and something that he brought up to me was that, you guys are closing deals amidst this pandemic. And I asked him, how are you doing that? And what he said to me kind of was enlightening. And I imagine you share the same vision as him since you guys are partners. But he said, we have to set the bar. He said people aren't doing deals, but if no one's going to do deals, when it's going to start. So he said, we just got to set the bar. We see the potential here. We see the returns, the numbers, everything looks great. So let's just go and do it. And I think that's incredible because I think at this point, a lot of people are kind of struggling to figure out how I'm going to make it through. What's it going to be like on the other side? And not enough people are really buckling down and saying, what can I do now in this situation to make the best of things? So I was going to ask you something, but I kind of think I answered the question myself, but let me see anyway. So I want to see, is there something that you've done since the onset of this pandemic, that has the whole lockdown that has happened, a goal that you've set, like something new that you didn't have beforehand?
Well, I mean, FTW actually qualifies here, right? So
exactly.
we had been, Corey and Logan and I have been working together for 2 years now and have been going after these deals together and closing deals together. And frankly, immediately when COVID happened, we were under contract on 5 properties. They all blew up in our face, right? And so we said, okay, well, what's going on here? And they blew up in our face because, we tried to get extensions or whatever else. And sellers weren't willing. We said, you know what? We're willing to take a step away, especially since a number of these properties were retail properties. We're willing to take a step away, see where the pricing falls in the market, and come back into this. We're still very excited about neighborhood commercial. We just wanted to get a little bit more understanding on pricing. And so we took a step back from deals that we were active in, and we said, well, now that we have some headspace to think about this more strategically and work on the business and not in the business, let's make this a formal business. We're all doing this separately, but also together. And I think that, frankly, it was an opportunity for us to, clarify to our investors that we are moving forward as us 3 sponsors, and we're going to do this work together.
Absolutely. So is there anything that helps you to stay focused in that? Yeah, morning rituals, or is there anything like, something that kind of keeps you focused on those goals?
So every week we do our vision traction kind of organizing meeting. And so every Monday is basically a nice touchstone for us to visit, go over our goals, go over our objectives. It's that meeting is nothing to do with operations and almost all entirely just kind of working on the business. So we take that hour and a half every Monday to work on the business, keep each other abreast of the things that we're doing to be growing and meeting our goals. And then we take the rest of the week to execute on that. And I think that's very helpful.
Excellent. That's incredible. Yeah, it is important to not just grow the business, but work on the business and not just work the business. You got to take that extra time to do that. So I think it's really maybe a good segue right now to just jump into the final four, because I think we may go into some of these things a little deeper. But we've taken. Wonder if you would tell me. The first question I have for you is, what is the worst job that you ever had?
And so I'm thinking that's probably one of two, but I would say so worst job I ever had was probably when I was an RA in college, resident assistant, and I'm broke, and so I'm doing the RA thing to pay for housing, and I'm still broke. So I'm saying, okay, what can I do? And then I worked the front desk at the apartments, the overnight shift from midnight to 6 a.m.
Wow.
And for an entire year, I don't think I had anywhere close to reasonably healthy sleep patterns. So probably worst job I did.
Wow. Yeah. And I can imagine in a college apartment, those aren't necessarily quiet hours.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Couldn't necessarily get your studying done or whatever you need to do at that time. But okay, so what is a book that you've read that's given you a paradigm shift?
For me, it's one I think it's probably a lot for a lot of people. But when I was kind of early on, sort of transitioning my headspace from kind of public service to business, I sought out to understand more about all the various systems and how they come into play and the incentives that are involved and all of that. And frankly, this is a pretty simple book. And I don't actually like how the book is written, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I actually think totally changed my framework and made me think about, finance and personal finance entirely differently than I ever had before.
Absolutely. And it's actually a pretty common theme amongst our guests. That book has definitely come up a few times because, it is something that it lays out, it's a paradigm shift. It just makes you think totally different than you were trained or thought about finances and about how we view investing versus, working and getting money, earned income. So that's, it's a great book. What skill or talent would you like to learn?
So this is one that I never picked up, and I wish I would have. Piano. If I could do anything, piano. So growing up, I sang in high school choir and did musicals and plays and did all that stuff. And I don't do music anymore, and I never learned to play piano. And I feel like if I could go into my golden years being able to play piano and entertain a crowd, I just think that'd be a great talent to have.
That's awesome. And you could,
Mm-hmm.
But it really, it's learning a musical instrument is, do you play any other musical or just you sang?
Sing. I played guitar growing up too.
Guitar. I also play a little guitar, but it's obviously there's so much work that's involved in, learning to play an instrument. It's just learning just going over and over and the kind of tedious, just putting in the hours, repetitive. And, if someone who's not used to that kind of training, it's something that's very difficult to do. But at the same time, it really opens up possibilities because when you think about it, it kind of sets a goal and you say, hey, I can do something, maybe 3-5 years from now, if I do something every single day, I can actually be really good at it. So I think that's a great tool to use. And I think maybe you might want to think about picking that up.
And the time being, I've been doing something else that I've always wanted to do, which is teaching myself chess. So, yeah. So I like board games. I like strategy, and never really did chess growing up. And so I think it's a fun thing to pick up as well.
It's a very interesting strategic game. A great idea. Our final question for you today, Parker, is what does success mean to you?
So that's actually, I think, one of our conversation topics that we had when we were, setting up FTW. Because I think for all of us, we wanted to define what that is. Is it a certain dollar amount, or is it a lifestyle, or is it, the car and the house and all that kind of stuff. Frankly, for me, I think success is a sense of accomplishment. It's that I set out to do a thing and I achieved that. And I think, and enjoying the journey along the way. And absolutely, do I want to be able to take care of my family and take care of them well and live a nice lifestyle? But to me, it's about, frankly, winning at the things that we're set out to do.
Absolutely. So being successful is, not necessarily monetary. It's not necessarily what you have, and really about just succeeding in anything that you do in life. And I think that's great, because a lot of times people think about, kind of a big picture. And when they think about success, they might think of, this kind of future goal of what I'm going to be when I'm, have this amount, or like you mentioned. But if we focus kind of into ourselves, into what I'm accomplishing today or this week, and create goals that are attainable and create goals that are a little beyond our reach. And then we're successful in getting to those goals, then that's really what makes us successful. So it's really kind of how you look at it and the perspective.
Absolutely.
So I like that. And you guys are, definitely going to be successful, and we got to be on a lookout for FTW making big waves in Kansas City. And if our listeners want to get in touch with you, what's the best way that they can find you?
Yeah. Go to our website and you can connect to us there, ftwinvestmentsllc.com. My email, parker@ftwinvestmentsllc.com, or Logan, Corey, and I all try to be pretty active on LinkedIn, although you do a pretty good job yourself. So
try, I think LinkedIn is a place, and I think we may have connected on LinkedIn first. And it's one of those networks that, and you guys, if you're listening to this podcast and you found it somewhere and you didn't find it through LinkedIn, you got to go check me out and check Parker out on LinkedIn, because when you understand what it means to have a network, and I spoke about this, earlier today with someone, that your network is your net worth, and it seems kind of cliche, right? But in all actuality, when you see, as someone who, for example, has fallen on rough times, and a lot of us have fallen on rough times during these times, you can turn to your network. Those people that you have developed relationships with have, gone through, and you can turn to them and find resources. And LinkedIn is a kind of a community where people are positive and people are helpful. And most of the people I've found are growth oriented. And that's why I love it so much, because it's not just like social media where you're just like sharing whatever, with your friends and your family. These are business acquaintances and like a networking. I look at it like a networking event, just all day long. So that's why I love it. So thank you. And we'll definitely see you there. And our listeners, check us out, check Parker out, check out FTW Investments. And, I just want to thank you. Thank you again for joining me today, Parker. It's been a pleasure to get to know you a little more and find out what's making you guys tick, and wish you much success in your journey.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and to our listeners, thank you again for listening in. And remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.